So Peter Parker's life is about to get a heck of a lot more interesting, as because he has to work with Doctor Doom and is going to be forced to die over and over, literally being attacked and killed by otherworldly forces. We immediately pick up in the thick of it, with Spider-Man fighting a bunch of magical enemies as he fights and breaks his way into the Sanctum Sanctorum. Now, if you aren't familiar about what's going on and you just see Spider-Man with multiple limbs using magic, you would be very confused, and rightfully so. Well, to put very shortly, because Doctor Doom stole the title and powers of Sorcerer Supreme from Doctor Strange has an ongoing game, if you will, with CYTTORAK. Yes, you know, the entity that powers up Juggernaut, but essentially what goes on, CYTTORAK sends his children powered up to try and destroy and take over the Earth. But Doctor Strange was the champion who fights against that. And now with Doctor Doom taking the Sorcerer Supreme title from Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom instead is supposed to go against the 8 children of CYTTORAK. But instead, for whatever reason, he picked Spider-Man to take his place. And so now, armed with his new knowledge of what's happening, the new magical powers, suit, and also some very interesting items named the Reeds of Ragnador, which simply bring him back to life after he have died. He is now ready to face on these 8 very powerful magical cosmic entities. And having already beat the first one, and having died already, he is down to only 7 more out of the 8. And he only has 7 more lives. But moving back over to present day, as he is fighting his way into the Sanctum Sanctorum, we see he isn't alone, as he did bring Felicia Hardy the Black Cat with him, which is pretty perfect, bringing a master thief when you need to break and enter into somewhere. And he's breaking into this Sanctum Sanctorum under the guidance of Doctor Strange, who is in his astral form, because they need a very specific item from in there. A book with a bunch of magical knowledge that Peter, being the very intelligent person he is going to learn from. Because if he has any hope being Earth's champion against these 8 children of CYTTORAK, he's going to need to become as powerful as he can. But as he will find out, magic isn't as easy as Doctor Strange may make it seem, because as he goes on to read the book, he says maybe he's not ready for magic, but not ready yet, as he plans to do a little magic study session and cram all the knowledge in. And with Doctor Strange here helping them, you might say, okay, well, why doesn't he just take his place and the more experienced sorcerer fight this battle? Simply because once this giant tournament starts and the rules are set and the champion is named, it can't be changed. They need to fulfill the covenant that was set. And if not, well, the very powerful CYTTORAK would attack himself, and that is an issue that no one really wants to deal with. And speaking of CYTTORAK, we then move over to the Crimson Cosmos, a fully separate dimension where CYTTORAK and his other children have supreme power. And here we see some of the children of CYTTORAK basically rationalize and come to terms about what is happening, with one of them going on to say, Doctor Strange has been neutered, the human Doctor Doom is distracted, and an insect, Spider-Man, stands as Earth's champion. If not now more than ever, when do the children of CYTTORAK finally rise and claim the Earth in their father's name? But some of the other children aren't as restless and seek to change up the flow of things. Because as another one goes on to say, if CYTTORAK wanted the Earth, he'd have it. This covenant, this game we're playing, is Father's gift to us, and to see who will prove worthy enough to claim his throne. But as we will see, there is a different side to this all as well. As one of the other children of CYTTORAK, a woman this time, she goes on to say how all of this is all one big distraction. A game, meaningless efforts to simply mask as duty to their father. And how she has aspirations and know that this is imprisonment and how she wants to be set free. Because this isn't some sort of new thing, no, this has been going on for years. Except before, Doctor Strange was the champion and fought against all of these 8 people, which is a cycle of dying, being reborn, fighting again. And now with Spider-Man in his place for this time, he is going to be the one to settle it. But maybe this daughter of CYTTORAK will start a coup from the inside out. Maybe even work with Spider-Man to end this meaningless game, as she puts it, once and for all. And speaking of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, we move over back to his apartment, as we see him studying this mystical book from Doctor Strange while talking to someone about everything that has been going on. And that someone is none other than Norman Osborn, the person you would least expect Spider-Man to be sharing all of his info with. But Norman for now is essentially a good person. Well, maybe not good, but he isn't the evil goblin that he usually is. If anything, previously with the help of Spider-Man, he got the goblin purged from his system. But of course, things like that in comics don't last forever, and eventually he's going to be back. But for now, they talk about the entire situation that Peter has found himself in, with Norman even saying he doesn't believe in magic, which is something I think even at one point in time Reed Richards said, and it's just pretty stupid, right? Especially in the Marvel Universe, being super intelligent like Norman Osborn or Reed Richards or in that tier, magic in this universe isn't even a question, it's an undisputed fact. Like, I don't get how you would see Doctor Strange or all these other magical creatures, beings out there and don't believe it's real or don't believe it's possible when there's other things like the multiverse, you know, very powerful alien civilizations and ancient deities and cosmic entities, yet magic is where you draw the line and don't think it's real. It's just, you know, that would be like not even top 10 craziest things within this universe. But regardless of all of that though, we see Norman drop a pretty interesting bomb on Peter. He has shut down Oscorp effective immediately, meaning Oscorp and Norman Osborn in the current shape that they they are is no longer a thing, which of course Peter is surprised by all of this, but in the end he says it's a pretty good thing for Norman. But good things for Peter don't last at all, as when he checks the time he realizes that not only is he late, but he was supposed to meet Aunt May somewhere. But as he quickly says goodbye to Norman and going out of his apartment door and into the hallway, we find out that it's not a hallway at all, as he walks through a portal, not only fully in costume but on an empty stadium where his next challenge awaits, as he is now face to face with another child of CYTTORAK named Cyprian. And this guy here, along with the rest of the other children of CYTTORAK, they all have each individual and unique power sets, with the first one that Peter fought before having the ability and control over gravity, but instead this one here having the ability to control space. And of course with their battle immediately beginning, we see that Cyprian's mastery over space isn't just all talk, as soon as Peter does a spell and throws multiple punches, the child of CYTTORAK opens portals and send them all redirecting back to him. But still going off of his previous battle, Peter knows this and realizes that even magic follows some sort of rules and laws. He simply just has to figure out those rules, break them down, and win. But of course Spider-Man can't play to all of his advantages, as now that he's in a wide open field, he doesn't really have anywhere for swinging. So instead he opts to lunge for the otherworldly entity, but he gets teleported away all the same. And believe me, this guy can do way more than just teleport objects, as we see him go on to say, "You will never touch me, Spider-Man, as there is always an infinitely divisible space between us, as well as infinite spaces which I can banish you to." Which in short means that not only does he have a barrier around him, kind of like Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen, where there's an infinite space between them and Spider-Man can't touch him, but he can also use his space abilities to send various parts of Spider-Man's body all throughout the cosmos. And as this is happening, Spider-Man is experiencing tremendous pain, as he says he is blinded as different halves of his skull is being sent to different corners of the universe. But fortunately for Spider-Man, all of that studying he was doing has paid off, which after doing a specific spell, simply named the Tenacious Thread of Tetnatrium, it effectively binds Spider-Man and Cyprian together, meaning wherever he goes, Spider-Man goes, which is pretty useful against a guy who likes to disrupt space and teleport. And now with them linked together, Spider-Man starts to limit his space of moving, so he uses another powerful spell and creates a dome around them, essentially creating a little prison. But as we find out, Cyprian has seen this before, because Doctor Strange has used this exact thing on him 3 or 4 challenges ago. And now he has a countermeasure, as he uses his abilities over space to shrink not only himself but Spider-Man, because they are now connected together. And no, not just shrinking like Ant-Man, but infinitely smaller, as they shrink even smaller than the size of electrons. But he can keep going as Spider-Man goads him into going even smaller, because Spider-Man even throughout all of this has a plan. As you see, he knew from the start that the dome wouldn't work because Doctor Strange has told him this. He also has told Spider-Man that this guy right here, Cyprian, doesn't think about the nature of his powers half as much as Peter thinks about theoretical physics. So bear with me now, but Peter goes on to say, there's a model of space-time that suggests if you got in a spaceship and flew straight, you would eventually come back at the same location. Now it would take an infinite amount of time to do that, but you would get there. And theoretically, the same thing could be said with scale, meaning if you go in one direction strongly enough, whether it be enlarging or in this case shrinking, you would eventually come around full circle the size you started. Now of course before, this was only limited to just a thought experiment. Not that this sort of thing could be realistically experimented or studied on, well that is until you involve magic into the situation. As you see this exact thing play out, they shrink down so much that they come back full circle, back to the point they started in, but very large this time. And yes, it's as trippy as it sounds, being the biggest and smallest at the same exact time, but it's working, as Spider-Man looms up bigger than the Earth itself, jabbing one finger into the space they were, the dome, crushing it with the force of a meteor impact, which yes, not only hurts, but kills them both. And even though they died, Spider-Man wins this battle, as because he does have the reeds which bring him back to life. So that's now 2 out of 8 entities that he now has to fight, but that's also 2 out of 8 lives he has used up, which so far he's doing pretty good and is pretty successful. And now being brought back to life and back as just normal Peter, we see him on a little dinner outing with some of his friends, with Peter's mind not being all the way there, as he is dealing with a whole heck more than he normally would be, which in and of itself is saying something, as Spider-Man's life is never dull and has a bunch of problems going on without all of the magic, Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange, and Children of CYTTORAK attacking Earth issues. But it gets even worse for him, as suddenly in the middle of dinner his spider sense starts to go off, and we see his next opponent, as we see what seems to be some little girl riding on a bike. But make no mistake, this is a powerful entity looking to not only beat Peter, but lay waste to Earth in the name of her father, CYTTORAK. And while yes, it would be pretty funny seeing Spider-Man have a death battle with a child, but that is something we will see in the next issue as this one comes to a close. If you have enjoyed, leave a like, or subscribe if you're new and enjoy this type of content. As always, this was the Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.